Okay. Well, we have got some great big news out of Texas, and we've got the man himself, Joe Tegtmeyer, here to tell us what it is exactly we're talking about, what we're looking at, what we're doing, all that good stuff. I'm Brian. Welcome to my Tesla Weekend. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing pretty good. Like I was saying, it's been a busy day today. Everything from being down at Corpus Christi, getting the video out, and then going over to drop off my car at a collision center. So it's just been a crazy day.
Whole bunch of stuff. That accident you shared, if you haven't watched it on Joe's channel, is a little hairy. It's a little hairy. So glad you're well from that. Glad it's all getting squared away. So let us know in the chat if you can hear us okay and all that good stuff. So you first went down to the groundbreaking, is that right?
Actually, I did not. Ellie in Space was at the groundbreaking. About a month before that, when we were going down to Starbase to watch the first integrated flight test for the Starship. We stopped there. At that time, there was nothing. There was a little guard shack, a couple of containers, maybe a couple of pieces of equipment, a dirt road, and a security guard that really didn't want us to be there and asked us to vacate the premises. So, but I did see enough to see that there was literally nothing at that time, and that would have been very early April. And then in the 8th of May is when they did the groundbreaking, and that's when Ellie went back there, and she was able to film it and see the activities, see the Cybertruck, hear the presentation, see the groundbreaking, and so forth. And then at her time, and you could see kind of behind her picture here, that was sort of staged out there for the groundbreaking, but really there wasn't a whole lot. Right behind that last piece of orange equipment, you can see like that green field. That was pretty much what was there. And so, I've been meaning to try to get back down there for a while, but it's a fairly good drive for me. So it really just didn't work out, and I finally decided to go down yesterday to try to get all the filming done, and it worked out really well.
And the weather cooperated for you and it wasn't too windy.
No, the windy wasn't a problem. What was a problem is I went down there kind of early in the morning, and the Gulf of Mexico is very close to there, and so the ground fog came in. So it was actually completely no visibility whatever when I got there. So I had to wait for a while for it to clear up, but fortunately it did.
Well, we appreciate your commitment, that's for sure. So when we get into it here a little bit, we've got the site has been cleared and leveled, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing how much work has been done in just about, well, not quite 4 months since that groundbreaking. And as you can see by this picture here, the ground is very dark dirt material. It's got a lot of clays in it. I think it was farmland or could be farmland at some point in time. You'll see some ponds nearby here. Those were not there when we were, when the groundbreaking was done, and they certainly were not there when I was there in April. So all of that has been added, and the small section where they had the groundbreaking and where I first got there, it has been expanded so much it doesn't even look like the same place. It's actually amazing.
It really doesn't. So I'm going to skip forward to, let's see what we got here. And this video will be linked in the description. Joe's channel's already linked in the description, but it's a 20-minute walkthrough of all the different things. So yeah, we've got, did it move for us? Can't tell if it's stuck. Oh, it looks like it might be a little stuck. We'll just give it a second there. So we've already got some concrete going up.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are quite tall. Looking at the man lift next to it, the bucket, the cherry picker there, it's pretty substantial.
It is. I think it's hollow. I think at the top there's some rebar to cap it off, but there's some open access points around the sides that I could see. And I don't know if this is, I don't know if you have a picture of the render somewhere, but it looks like there may eventually be two sets of those, and they may be part of a loading or a conveyor system that will connect to. In this particular picture, you can see where there's like a white patch with dirt coming up. there's going to be a very long building with Tesla written on the top, and it looks like that may be the main, I don't know, production, maybe offices, building, I'm not sure. And then going to the left along that entire section, or at least in this picture here, going down kind of the center, you can see, I don't know, you can see that structure on the left. You could see kind of a tan area in the middle, and there's actually some, I think there's screw type footings that have already been installed. There's a white vertical, I think it's a concrete or a cement structure there, but there's also some roads near that kind of go parallel to that. Anyway, I think they're going to have 2 sets of those concrete structures at some point, and then through that whole area there'll be a series of structures, buildings, and conveyor belts that go through there.
That's fascinating. Now, there is in this shot a railway there. Now, in your video, you said you don't believe that they're going to use it.
No, I do think that they're going to use it.
Oh, you do think?
Yeah, it's an active railroad. It serves quite a bit of facilities around this area, and I believe it goes near, or it certainly will have the capability of going to the port of Corpus Christi, which is where they most likely will be bringing ships in with some of the raw materials. Then they can bring it out here, and then whatever the final materials that they finish, they could use those rail again. And since I put the video out, I've been looking at more of the pictures, and if you look at the original rendering, they actually show kind of along the side where the pond is, in that general area, they showed 2 sections of rail with rail cars in that part. So I'm pretty sure that that is part of the plan, is to use that rail system.
And it would make sense because the sheer volume of material going that is required to get a few kilograms of lithium is substantial. You wouldn't want to be doing that by truck.
No, I don't think people kind of understand that. If you had a rock, say this big, there might be half a gram or less material in there that you're actually going to use.
Right. Right. Boy, I'm getting nothing but trouble out of YouTube today. There is also, you had pointed out those big steel pipes. Did anyone give you good feedback on what those might be?
Yes, did a little bit more research. I've had a lot of people from Patreon and some viewers sending me satellite images, other images, and so forth. But what we believe they are is they're 2 kilns, and they may be used as the initial part of the processing of the raw material. It may be spodumene or spodumene concentrate 6, but in any case, that material needs to be heated to about 1,000 to 1,050 Celsius for a period of time for the initial part of the processing. And then once that is completed, that's where Tesla's new process will diverge significantly away from what the traditional ones are. From what I understand, and I still have to do some more research on it, but from what I understand is once the kilns are done doing the heat treatment, that material in traditional refineries use, I don't know if they're ponds or brine tanks or whatever, for some more of that material. In Tesla's case, it will go from here to a new process that will bypass that. So this entire refinery is going to be not only interesting from the standpoint of making the lithium hydroxide for batteries, but the processes that they use.
Okay. And then we've got, let's see, some buildings already going up, it looks like.
Yeah. Hopefully we get YouTube. My pictures are actually clearer than this.
They really, really are. And I apologize. I do not know why it is doing this to me. It is entirely possible that I have too many things open. Let me try closing out of this just to see if that's
it could be.
Any kind
but
of
well, while we're waiting for hopefully that to come up, since this was the first time I had actually flown there and I've been able to see what's going on, as I intentionally kind of flew the drone around the entire perimeter to give you a good idea of the size of the facility that's being built. It was actually much larger than I even expected. I think I probably put a couple of miles just around the perimeter alone of flying. And then this is, after I did the perimeter flying, we're flying in towards kind of the center of the construction site. And a few things that you can note. On the left-hand side of the screen where all the trailers are, you can see kind of a beam and a 2-column structure. That's where the actual ground breaking took place. And I'll get you some closer views of that in a minute. What I'm showing you here in the video, this is a still, and I'm trying to give you the exact same vantage point that the official rendering that Tesla provided was made from. And this, I think if you compare the other picture to this picture, gives you a really good idea of where we're looking. We're kind of looking sort of to the south. You can see some of the roadway on the left, and that leads from Corpus Christi down towards South Padre Island and Boca Chica if you were to continue that way. You can see in the rendering there was an initial small pond by the roads, but there was nothing, there was no ponds nearby. You can see this is the basic refinery itself. And as I mentioned earlier, if you look just past those white structures on the left, you can actually see the rail trains. So it does suggest that there's going to be rail service into that location.
Okay. Now I get it now. I get it. That makes, because you'd have to. You'd just have to. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, they've got the solar panels on the roof spelling out Tesla in negative space. Hey, quick question I had is when they extend the building to the south, the logo doesn't fit anymore. What do you put in the negative space there?
Oh, we're talking about Giga Texas?
Point in Texas, when they extend it off the end, what are they going to add there? Is it
well, you know, like... Austin is Longhorn country, so maybe they'll put a giant Longhorn.
That's better than my idea. I was thinking he would quote the official Twitter/X.com PR response, which is just put a poop emoji. Right. At this pace, they're anticipating being done in the end of next year.
This is for the Corpus Christi lithium plant?
Yes.
From what Ellie heard is by the end of next year they should have the entire facility done. That it wasn't clear if they're going to have tests, runs done by that period or so forth. But she did mention that the following year, which would be 2025, it would be into production. I would imagine that it's sort of similar to vehicles. At first the production rates are going to be very small, and then as they work out the issues through the products and the factory and the processes, then it will ramp. So that may be why they're giving such a long lead time for this, because as far as I understand, this is a first of its kind type of refinery that's being built with a completely new process that is different than what most traditional lithium manufacturers have been using.
And that's the thing is Tesla will not go into an industry unless they can disrupt it. They don't want a car that's 5% better. They want a car that's 50% better, 100% better. And it's going to be interesting to see. When you were out there, how much activity was actually going on?
Well, it was a Sunday, so I was not sure what I would see, but there was actually quite a bit of activity going on. There were people working on that large kiln, the two large pipes that we saw. Right. There were excavators and earthwork machinery working all throughout this entire area. You can see actually a excavator going on here in that kind of the dark dirt section. In the foreground, you can actually see on the ground those kind of dots. Those are screw type footings that they will eventually attach columns or other machinery to. So that's already there, at least in that section. And then also that kind of rectangular section on the right that has water had some more of them. And then there were crews actively building a large foundation next to those two taller concrete structures.
And what do you think is the going to be the total size of this when it's done? It's tough to say because it's not one building. Right.
It's not just one building. It's going to be more than that. But if you look at the render was right in this area where we're looking. But off to the left, off to the right, there was a lot more clearing and a lot more activity that was not shown in the rendering. So I expect to see quite a bit more being developed than what we initially saw. And that's actually sort of consistent with what we've seen with all the other gigafactories too, is they show us a portion and then all of a sudden we just start seeing construction in multiple different locations and we have to try to figure out what it is that they're building.
Right. And when it comes to the plot of land itself, how big is that?
I honestly don't know. I don't know the acreage of it, but looking at it just from how much was developed, It's probably in the order of 300 or 400 acres at least, maybe larger than that. It was pretty large. It was substantial.
And those giant ponds, those weren't there.
No, not at all. There's kind of a set of three triangular ones to the north and that one trapezoidal to the south. It doesn't look like they're lined. It looks like they were excavated and then filled up. They're building a channel that connects the largest of the triangle one across sort of the east face over to the trapezoidal one, and they actually have fencing on either side of that channel, and they had some bridges over the channel. So it looks to be, at least for right now, that that's going to be at least semi-permanent, and it looks like it levels the water between the two groups of ponds.
It'll be interesting to find out what they're for. Obviously, they're whatever they are, they're not in use in the process of refining lithium to date because
No.
there's no building in which to do it.
Right.
And yeah, it is surprising seeing this much activity on a Sunday.
Yes, and you can see on this here on the left, that white section, they're actually putting lime down into the dirt to the clay, and then they're spraying it with water, and then they're mixing it all together, and they're doing that because the lime and the clay will actually provide or return strength to the ground, and that'll be suitable, and especially that section where that very long building with that Tesla on the roof. And it looks to me like by the pond you can see some more kind of white in with the ground. It looks like they've been doing this treatment all throughout this entire area. And again, it makes sense because the ground is very heavily clay kind of material, and that's not really the best to be just building structures on. So they need to strengthen that, and then they'll put in footings and I don't know, I haven't seen any drills for piles or piers, but I would imagine that they're going to have to do some supports. They already have some of those screw type piers already in for the footings that we did see, so that may be the way that they approach this structure.
And one question in the chat was, did you say you were born in England?
I was born in London.
Oh, okay. So there you go, guys. Joe was born in London. I, as you may know, went to London recently for Fully Charged. Met someone, Andrew, in the chat. We had a lovely dinner, and yeah, it's a great place. Very expensive, very expensive. Before we let him go, what questions do we have for Joe on this? I do want to thank you though for just getting out there and doing the legwork. It's impossible without people like you. Showing what you're good at and actually doing it, and we appreciate that tremendously.
Oh, thanks. I'm very curious myself, so I figure if I'm going to do this, I might as well share with everybody.
That's the whole reason I have a channel. That's the whole reason I was counting squares on the factories, was because I was already counting them. I just didn't have anyone to share it with. These ponds are very large, very interesting.
Yes, they are. It shocked me. The opening shot of the video I did intentionally, where I started off where the groundbreaking was, and I pulled all the way away just to show you how big it was. And I really wasn't prepared for that. I was kind of expecting about where that white rounded top tent is, where some of the trailers are, where the groundbreaking was, and maybe some work where the refinery is going to be. That's about all I had expected to see when I got there.
I did not expect I didn't expect anything vertical, and I didn't expect this much clearing, and I didn't expect any ponds. So this is, I'd like to think it's on schedule. When it comes to construction, Tesla's schedule is very tight by anyone's standard. There's the render. Yeah, and it was just nothing and then that. So we did get another word of thanks from David. Very useful as a small investor to see what's going on. And I've also met David at an EVs and Coffee event. That was fun.
Cool.
Yeah. And you've met a lot of people. By the way, the folks, I think it's got to be the same folks. There was a whole tour bus that came to see you from somewhere in
From the
Eastern
Czech
Europe.
Republic.
The Czech Republic.
Yeah.
They made it all the way to Michigan. They went to Sandy's place too.
Yeah.
So they were on a Tesla tour. How cool is that?
They also spent a whole bunch of time out in California, and they went to several of the factories as well. And I think they may have actually stopped at SpaceX headquarters too.
Well, SpaceX's headquarters is right there in California. If you're at Tesla, you can drive down to, or if you're in Los Angeles, you can just the big rocket out front. I think it's the first one they landed. Any last questions before we permit Joe to go back about his day? Get him in now. London, UK, to clarify, is not London, Ontario.
No.
Yeah. And we're going to be looking forward to seeing the progress. How often are you planning to get out there? Once a month?
Well, that's going to be somewhat of a challenge because it's a good 6 hours of driving for me, and it's in the opposite direction of Giga Texas, which is 3.5 hours of driving for me each time I go up there. So I have to kind of figure out what is actually manageable. Obviously, Giga Texas is the primary thing that I'm doing. Fortunately, nearby there, they have the SpaceX Starlink facility and the boring facility, which is pretty close, so that makes it relatively easy. This is actually on the way to Starbase. I do intend to go down there for Starship launches and do some other coverage, so I may use that opportunity to stop here because it's literally on that road that I showed you, right off the screen here is the road that you take down to Boca Chica.
Oh, that's great. And there are, I did want to know, do you know the elevation here has got to be pretty low? It's got to be almost sea level, is that right?
It's pretty low, maybe 5-6 miles directly behind the drone from this perspective is the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, so it's real low. And guys, if you want Joe going out to Corpus Christi, he does have a Patreon. You can join me in supporting him on Patreon, because as gas ain't cheap, but electricity ain't cheap either, and gotta juice up the ride to get there. So Joe, so for everybody watching this on the replay, what did we miss? What did we misunderstand? Leave it in the comments, of course. And did you have any final thoughts before we go, or did I cover it all?
No, I think we've, for the most part, covered everything. There was that Quonset hut, kind of the sprung structure, and I was thinking, that's not a Tesla facility if it doesn't have a tent. So this one definitely has that tent. So they're all set up for that. And just by looking at like this here, this structure, this looks like it's going very quickly. It would not surprise me within a few weeks if this looks totally different, and they may be working on the mirror image one that I am expecting kind of across the way on the other side of where that earthwork machinery just drove by. But it is incredible just how fast they're moving. I had some people say that they were a little disappointed that it's not farther along, and I'm like, they literally did the groundbreaking at 8th of May, and there was nothing. It was just an empty field, as if it was a farmland with nothing there. So I think this is pretty quick.
Yeah, 3 months and change. I'm quite pleased with this is beyond what I expected, especially considering that nothing's really moving in Nevada yet, and for that matter, neither is, and Berlin is moving very slowly compared to other Tesla factories.
Well, you could also compare this to Giga Mexico. I know it's a totally different construction, and I'm not saying that this is anywhere near as complex. That's not my intention. What I'm saying is both were generally announced at about the same time. Giga Mexico is still going through the permitting process and getting everything ready to go to begin construction. And by the way, me looking at Adrian, who is now doing drone footage of Giga Mexico and what he has shown so far, I expect a very protracted period of time preparing the ground there before they can actually start construction, because it's very sloped. There's a lot of mountains. There's a lot of drainage channels. There's a lot of geographical issues that they're going to have to deal with at Giga Mexico, which is totally different than what we saw at Berlin or Texas or Shanghai. So once they start, you're going to see a lot of earthwork for a very long time, I think.
I think so too, and it looks kind of rocky to me.
Yes.
Which is very hard on the equipment. So guys, what MD Hofstee just got here. So what did we miss? What did we misunderstand? Leave it in the comments below. Like, subscribe, do all the usual things. Check out Joe. Help him out on Patreon if you like these kinds of videos. You made it to the end. You like these kinds of videos. Don't pretend. So for everybody else, stay tuned, stay juicy, and I can't wait to hear from you clever robots on the flippity flop.
Thanks for having me.